Joining us now, White House reporter for Axios, Mark Caputo, who's got new reporting on Marco Rubio's Venezuela moment. Mark, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. So let's talk about this. Rubio, remarkable ascent in Trump's orbit over this past year, and has made no secret that this is sort of what he hoped would happen in Venezuela. And now we saw his goals realized with the might of the American military behind them over the weekend.
Right. Actually, take it back to 2017. That was just a few months after the 2016 election. Marco Rubio got decimated by Donald Trump in the presidential race. Trump called him up when he took office, and they met. And Rubio decided to take along the wife of a Venezuelan leader, Leopoldo Lopez, to plead her case with Trump and to talk about how her husband was a political prisoner. And that really moved Trump in 2017. Stretch on to 2019, Juan Guaido was seen as the rightful leader of Venezuela because Maduro, for the first time, had stolen his election. And Rubio was by then working very closely with Trump as sort of the de facto head of Western Hemisphere, even though Rubio was a U.S. senator at the time. And Trump recognized Guaido and started to really take aim at Maduro. A year later, Maduro gets indicted by the United States. And so the two of them have been working very closely on Western Hemisphere and Venezuela-related matters all the way back roughly, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. So now that Trump took office here, this year, or I guess last year now, the time is flying, he made sure Rubio was a Secretary of State, in part because of Rubio's Venezuela policy. So there's been this narrative out there that, Rubio's been driving this and Trump has been some sort of reluctant person being dragged along. Actually, Trump chose Rubio because he liked what Rubio told him. One of the things I should add, what a lot of people don't know, in 2019, Trump had talked about seizing oil tankers. He talked about military involvement in Venezuela, and it was Rubio who talked him out of it and pointed out, you don't have the assets there. We don't have the military, the craft, the military battleship, so to speak, and the military personnel and weaponry in order to pull this off. So when you come to this year, when you come to 2025 and now 2026, all of those assets were put in place to preserve the options for Trump to do what he did just over the weekend. So for those of us who've been following it for a long time, it doesn't come as a complete surprise, but the way in which it went down was certainly newsworthy.
So certainly a major question now, Mark, is, well, what's next? If beyond Venezuela, a country that is often linked to Venezuela is Cuba. We know that when the oil tanker embargo began, that hurt Cuba's economy. We know a couple dozen Cubans were killed by U.S. military personnel over the weekend because they were providing security for Maduro. We also know that Marco Rubio has made clear his intentions on Cuba's future as well. So talk to us about what could be next for that island nation.
The best thinking in the administration is that Cuba's economy is just really a shambles. Unlike Venezuela, it doesn't have oil. It doesn't have gold. It doesn't have cocaine, obviously an illicit product that was helping prop up the regime in Venezuela. They don't have that in Cuba. And Cuba has been so badly run. It used to be a leader in sugar production. It barely produces any sugar anymore. And so there's this belief that now that this major supplier of oil and indirectly and directly finances to Cuba has gone by the wayside, that the administration itself, or the administration in Havana, I should say, is going to collapse of its own weight. I hesitate to say what the United States will do in that case, but the buildup that you've seen in the Caribbean by the United States ahead of the action in Venezuela puts the U.S. military front and center in being able to respond to any crisis or any matter in the Caribbean. So if a military option is exercised, that can be done relatively quickly. That having been said, there's also a U.S. military base, a naval base, 90 miles from Cuba in Key West, and there's obviously a number of military assets on the Gulf Coast as well.
All right, we will be watching that. White House reporter for Axios, Mark Caputo. Mark, thank you. His latest piece online now.